What's up, guys? It's KB. Make sure you subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel. Click the bell icon down below so you don't miss a single video from us. And thanks for tuning in to another video from Underground Sports Philadelphia. Now let's get into it.
Philadelphia, baby, you're going to love it. Best sports fans in the world. Actually, the worst, but that's what makes them the best.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome into episode number 852 of Underground Sports Philadelphia, presented by the city of Vineland. It's your boy KB coming at you solo dolo for part of the episode because it's Waterdogs Weekly here on a Thursday, and we've got the man, the myth, the legend, the leader of the pack, head coach of your Philadelphia Waterdogs, Bill Tierney, on the show. Coach Tierney gave us 90 minutes of his time. It was an absolutely awesome conversation with Coach T. Really insightful, and really the first time I've gotten to sit down with Coach Tierney one-on-one like that outside of a press conference. So it was really, really fun to sit down with Coach T, talk all things Waterdogs, chop it up about lacrosse, and some really, really fun stuff about the city of Philadelphia as well. So definitely stick around for that. We'll talk some Phils as they break out the brooms once again and sweep the season series against the San Diego Padres, and as the Phillies admin so eloquently put it, that's what's in. And then we will also talk a little bit more about this A.J. Brown fallout trade and everything, as he did 7 p.m. in Brooklyn with Maria Taylor, and some very interesting things coming out of that interview that I just wanted to get my thoughts off about. But before we get into everything, make sure you guys are following us on the socials at Underground PHI across the board. It really helps the show continue to grow when you follow us. So please follow us: Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Facebook, LinkedIn. We're on every social platform. Please follow us. It really does help the show at Underground PHI. Subscribe to the pod, subscribe to the pod, subscribe to the pod, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts in audio form. Leave those 5-star ratings and reviews. It goes a long way for the show to continue to grow. It helps where people find Underground Sports Philadelphia, plus our entire catalog of podcasts here at Underground Industries. So please subscribe, leave those 5-star reviews, and share the pod with your people, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And, of course, subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel, youtube.com/@Underground Sports Philadelphia. That is where you get full video episodes of this show twice a week. That is where you get full video episodes of all of our original podcasts here on the network, clips, shorts, live streams, original video content. It's all on our YouTube channel. We're 11 subscribers away from our next big subscriber milestone, so please subscribe, youtube.com/@Underground Sports Philadelphia. Like I said, leave a like on the video, drop a comment in the comment section, and click that bell icon so you know whenever new videos go live. And of course, guys, this show is proudly presented by the City of Vineland, and the City of Vineland Municipal Calendar features city-organized, city-sponsored, and city-affiliated events that are of public interest. The calendar, which is accessible at vinelandcity.org, is a great way for residents and visitors to build awareness, remain engaged with city government, and participate in local events. You can also follow the City of Vineland on social media via their Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube pages. And through these tools, you can stay connected to the community and get important announcements about programs and services offered by the city. Vineland, New Jersey, where it's always growing season. And big thank you to Security 21 Security Systems and Paul J. Gillespie Incorporated for their continued support of this podcast.
Hello, I'm Mayor Anthony Fanucci. Vineland, New Jersey offers both a great business location and an outstanding quality of life. But don't just take my word for it, the experts agree. We're proud to be recognized as a premier food processing and logistics hub, one of New Jersey's most affordable and desirable cities, and one of the best places to retire in the country. Visit vinelandcity.org and see how our resources can work for you. Vineland, New Jersey, where it's always growing season.
Let's dive into our Fightin' Phils as they sweep the San Diego Padres up on out of here by finishing off the season series this afternoon down in South Philly with Zach Wheeler on the mound. We also had Cristopher Sanchez make a little history in this series, which we'll talk about, and a great start from Aaron Nola to kick off this series. Across the board, this was a very, very complete series for the Phillies in all of these games. 3-2 victories on Tuesday and Wednesday, and then a 6-4 victory on Thursday afternoon, which first time since May 18th that the Phillies have scored 5 or more runs in a game, which is crazy. But they get it done starting on Tuesday. Great job. Bryce Harper hits a home run in this game, but Aaron Nola again was the story. Aaron Nola, 5 innings, 4 hits, just 2 earned runs, 8 strikeouts for Knowles in that series opener. Did a phenomenal job, and that was without JT Realmuto in the lineup. Garrett Stubbs caught a really good game in that one. This goes to show you, and I talked about this after Nola's last dominant start, which I believe was also against the Padres. When Nola's on like this, like, you're not asking Aaron Nola to go 8 innings anymore. If he's giving you 5 or 6 innings every outing, like, you're good with that. It's just a matter of keeping the runs down, keeping the walks down, and this is, again, multiple starts in a row where Aaron Nola has not walked a single batter. Gave up the 4 hits, gave up the 2 earned runs, but 8 strikeouts, no walks. The walks did not haunt him, and the bullpen wound up doing their job. As Jose Alvarado came in for a clean inning, Orion Kerkering walked 1 batter but got out of it. He also gave up a hit but got out of it. Brad Keller gave up 2 hits, got out of it. Joan Duran slammed the door shut, and the Phillies win 3-2 on Tuesday night to move to 2 games over 500. And then you go into Wednesday night's game with Cristopher Sanchez on the mound. Makes MLB history, becomes the number 1 left-handed pitcher in baseball for consecutive scoreless innings in Major League Baseball history. The 5th longest streak in Major League Baseball ever for scoreless innings. 50 2/3 consecutive for Cristopher Sanchez. I was in the building, and it was one of the coolest moments when everything came to a close and the first run scores. It was unfortunate. And you're just like, damn, like, there goes that incredible streak. But to see the standing ovation that Cristopher Sanchez got, and it was overwhelming, like, how long it lasted. And it was a really cool moment to experience in person, just take it all in. And what an accomplishment. What an accomplishment for Cristopher Sanchez. Like, 50 2/3 straight of no runs allowed. That is the 5th longest streak in Major League Baseball history. And it was a great job by the offense to pick Sanchez up. Like, you scored with an Adolis Garcia double, which was very welcome to see. We'll talk more about Dolly in this series finale as well. And then Cristopher Sanchez gives up the run, and then boom, very next inning, in terms of Phillies batting, JT Realmuto hits a home run to get that run back. And then Kyle Schwarber hits a home run to give you the lead and give you a little insurance after Brad Keller hit a batter to walk in a run with the bases loaded. But he navigated his way out of that inning, and Joan Duran came in and slammed the door shut for the save. But to witness history in Major League Baseball the way that we did as fans with Cristopher Sanchez over this duration of 50 2/3 innings, it's something that does not come along very often. And I think we all have to, like, sit back and recognize that we witnessed something so special with the way that he pitched over this streak run. And he just continues to blossom into one of the most elite pitchers in Major League Baseball. And he should be a front runner for the Cy Young, but the streak has nothing to do with any of that. Like, this streak it's baseball history. And to watch, and we talked about this when the streak was continuing a couple weeks ago, like, to watch where Cristopher Sanchez was early on in his Phillies career and to see where he is now, it is truly one of those, like, player development things that, you know, a lot of people want to hamper down on the Phillies that they don't develop talent. They develop Cristopher Sanchez pretty damn well, and at the major league level for the most part at that. JT called a really strong game in this one as well. I was just super impressed with the movement Sanchez had on his pitches. He was fooling batters all night long, goes 7 strong innings, gave up the 1 earned run, walked 1 batter, gave up only 4 hits, 8 strikeouts. And I mean, as the old saying goes, good things always come to an end. But this is just now more credence that, like, we know what Cristopher Sanchez is capable of, and who's to say he doesn't start a new streak, you know? And I think there's a lot to be said about the way the team picked him up after that run, you know, was let up, and to see JT go get that run back on the home run. Schwarber comes in clutch, gets the home run as well, which ended up being the winning run. And it was just a really, really cool moment. And to see Cristopher Sanchez's, you know, comments after the game as well, like, I want to pull those up here actually to read them verbatim. He said, "It felt incredible. I'll forever be grateful to these fans, to the city, best fans in the world. Whether I'm here or not, they'll forever be the best fans in baseball." He's going to be a Philly for such a long time, and I'm thrilled that we have a pitcher of his caliber, and he's just so easy to root for, such a likable player, and to watch him dominate the way that he has over the duration of, you know, these past couple of seasons where we've really seen him come into his own has been a ton of fun, and just enjoyable as a fan to witness how incredible hard work, determination, and just the want to be elite is, and Cristopher Sanchez exemplifies that in every single way. So to see just an unbelievable feat be recognized by the fans every time he finished an inning, and then that culminating in that standing ovation afterwards when it was all said and done was such a special moment that I'll certainly remember for a long time. And just a really, really good team win to clinch the series, a good series win at home, which you have struggled to do this season, and then you finish it off in pretty awesome fashion. You get a series sweep again against the Padres. It's 2 sweeps against them in the last week or so. You win 6-4, first time, like I said, that you've scored 6 runs or 5 runs or more since May 18th. You got a home run from Adolis Garcia, which was very, very welcomed. And a lot of good, like, small ball. Bryce Harper scored 2 runs in this game. Trey Turner scored a run. It's about time he's gotten on base. About time he's driven in a run. It's been far too long since he's done anything that has popped off the box score. Kyle Schwarber, 1 for 4 with a walk. Brandon Marsh went 1 for 4 in this game. He also drove in a run. Alec Boehm, 2 for 4. You like to see that. Bryson Stott, 2 for 4. Both of those guys had RBIs as well. And Justin Crawford finding his swing again. He scored 2 runs, had a hit. He walked in this one. That's something I really want to see Justin Crawford do at the bottom of the lineup more, is draw those walks. Just because he's so damn fast that as long as he's getting on base, he's going to be a threat to steal. He's going to make pitchers like rethink their approach and have to worry about a guy on the base paths. If Justin Crawford can really like hone in on not exactly always wanting to put the ball in play, but waiting for those pitches and taking some of the tough pitches and getting himself on base, that's going to help this lineup a ton. Zach Wheeler was sensational. Worked his way out of a few walks, which are pretty uncharacteristic for Wheels throughout his career. He had 3 walks in this game, but only gave up 2 hits, gave up 2 earned runs. But he had 8 strikeouts, 7 innings pitched, threw over 100 pitches, which is a great sign to see from Wheeler. Ryan Kirkering came in, worked a solid inning, gave up a walk and a hit, but struck 1 batter out. And then Jose Alvarado gave up 2 earned runs, which was not great, but closed the game down, and the Phillies sweep the series against the Padres, not just this series, but the season series. And let's be honest, we know what it looks like towards the tail end of a season, especially if the Phillies find themselves working their way back into this playoff picture, which right now they're in it. They are in that wild card. You need those tiebreakers. As I pull up the wild card standings here on Major League Baseball's website, like, you need those tiebreakers so much. And right now the Phillies are the number 2 wild card. They're ahead of the Pittsburgh Pirates because they beat them head-to-head, which was nice. You're a full game back of the Cardinals. But the Phillies are in the playoff picture again, which is great to see. And again, it's not like they're catching the Braves anytime soon unless the Braves collapse, simply because they've given themselves a ton of padding with the amount of wins that they've rallied to start the season. But Phillies are in a wild card spot, and that's good to see. That's a positive sign. This team is 7-3 in their last 10. They're chipping away at that negative score differential. They're above 500 at home now for the first time in, I think, forever, if not all season. And they're working their way back into this thing, and they have a pivotal series against the Chicago White Sox this weekend to really, just continue chipping away at some of those early season deficiencies. And again, those tiebreakers are huge. You're ahead of the Padres by a half a game in the standings, and you have a full-fledged season tiebreaker against them. You've won 6 games against them this year. That's huge when it comes down to it. The Cubs are out of the playoff picture right now. The Diamondbacks are out of the playoff picture right now. The more of these teams you beat throughout the rest of the season, the better off it's going to be for the Phillies, working their way into this wild card, working their way back, hopefully into a division, pennant race against the Braves. But at the end of the day, you just got to get in the dance, as we've all seen. They got in the dance in 2022 and 2023 and made some deep runs. But you want to see them work their way back, claw in, and play good baseball. And I think this series, even though games were close, they clearly were they were the far superior team in this series. And, you can look at a box score and say, oh, it was 1-run game, 2-run game. If you watched the games, you could tell the Phillies were the far better team in all 3 of those games. And that's a positive sign to see. A week ago, the Padres were in first place in the National League West, and now they're on the outside looking in when it comes to the wild card. And that's because the Phillies handled business against them for 6 games and knocked them down, part of the totem pole there. I really like what I saw from the Phillies in this series, and I just hope they can continue to build upon it. That's the big thing. You saw what happened against the Dodgers after you swept the Padres the first time out in San Diego. You got one back, and you were unable to kind of close the deal in that series finale game. The White Sox are not the Dodgers, but the White Sox are a frisky team. They've got a lot of fun pieces. They are a playoff team right now. You have the same record as the White Sox right now. But you have better pitching than the White Sox. You have far better hitters across the board than the White Sox. Those hitters just have to show up, and your pitching has to do its job. And this is not going to be a rollover series. You've got to show up and play against the White Sox like it would be any other big league, club that is trying to push for a playoff spot. And that White Sox team is hungry. They're young, they're scrappy, and they are going to make you want to pull your hair out with the way that they play baseball. You got to assert your dominance against a far inferior team on paper and show hey, we are the better team here. We're going to continue building upon a very positive stretch of games we've had here, going 7-3 in our last 10, and continue to perform at home where we should have a ton of success. And I think this Padres series was a huge building block for this next block of games going into the All-Star break. And it's early June. You have the rest of the month to go. You have half of July to go before that break. But this is a good direction that I think the Phillies are heading in, and they just got to continue to build upon it. And if they can do that, I'll feel really good going into the All-Star break if they just continue to tally up wins, beat these teams in front of them, win series. That was the thing last year too. The Phillies were so dominant in the regular season because they would just win series. It didn't matter if they swept. It was, we're winning 2 out of 3. We're taking the series. The more games we win, the better off we are, obviously. But they would just win series. It wasn't like, oh, we dropped the series here and then we went on a run. No, you consistently, the Phillies were winning 2 out of 3, 3 out of 4. It was very rare that they were, dropping consecutive series last year. And that's what they got to get back to. They got to find those winning ways in a, consecutive and consistent manner. And I think, sweeping a team for the season is a great building block for this team. Sweeping them at home is a big building block for this team moving forward. And you're going to have, like I said, your hands full against this White Sox team. They're super scrappy. But you look at your pitching matchups going into the weekend, and I still think the Phillies have the advantage here going up against the White Sox. Friday, it's going to be Luzardo against Anthony Kay, who has a 5-1 record, but a 3.77 ERA, 42 strikeouts, not really a big strikeout pitcher. Luzardo, if he's on, that's an advantage for the Phillies. You look at Saturday's matchup, it's going to be Andrew Painter against Sean Burke. A winnable matchup there. The offense will have to show up. And then on Sunday, it's going to be Aaron Nola against David Sandlin, who has an 8.10 ERA in just 2 games so far this season. But again, that's a winnable game, and you just got to find a way to win this series and continue building upon a very positive stretch here, even with a series loss to the Dodgers sprinkled in there. You're 7-3 in your last 10. Offense showed in this game here in the finale that, hey, we can still score 5 runs. It's possible. And your bullpen, for the most part, really did their job in this series against the Padres and really limited them in scoring runs. I think the Padres only scored 3 runs total against the bullpen in those 3 games. So big positives to take away from this series and a lot to look forward to this weekend against the White Sox. So if you are feeling optimistic about the Phillies and this current stretch run, let me know. If you're feeling like still skeptical, let me know. Leave me a voicemail at speakpipe.com/undergroundsportsphiladelphia. That is our voicemail line that is always open, whether it's pregame, during a game, postgame, every single day of the week. Leave me a voicemail, speakpipe.com/undergroundsportsphiladelphia. But, of course, our tip of the cap here has to go to Cristopher Sanchez for just an incredible run. 50 2/3 scoreless innings consecutively. 5th longest streak in Major League Baseball history. The longest streak ever by a left-handed pitcher in Major League Baseball history. It speaks for itself. He is one of the most dominant pitchers we've seen over the last decade. And that's saying a lot with the amount of dominant pitchers we've seen in Major League Baseball. But my goodness, Cristopher Sanchez is putting on a clinic over the past few years, and this scoreless streak just goes into that pantheon of showing why he's elite. And our tip of the cap is brought to you by our friends over at 47. Guys, 47 is an apparel and lifestyle brand made by sports fans for sports fans. I'm rocking the Philly Fanatic Citizens Bank Park exclusive right now with the Fanatic all across the hat. I love this bad boy with the maroon colorway. 47 is the best, guys. Their apparel is second to none. Their headwear is the best in the game. I've also got my diamond cut hitch Kelly Green Eagles right here. I'm always rocking 47, whether I'm at the ballpark, going out to watch the game with friends and family, or just kicking it here at home, right here on the podcast. I'm rocking 47. They've got everything from Phillies, Eagles, Flyers, Sixers, Union, your favorite college teams, WNBA, NASCAR, and so much more. Use our link in the description to shop with 47, and you'll get free shipping on all orders when you join the 47 family. That is their rewards program. You earn points for every purchase you make, and those points go towards free gear because when you rack up enough points, you're going to get some stuff for free. And I don't know about you guys. If it's free, it's for me. So use that link in the description, shop with 47, and get free shipping on all orders when you join the 47 family. And we thank 47 for being a proud partner of Underground Sports Philadelphia and the unofficial official headwear partner of Underground Industries. We have an awesome 90-minute conversation with the man, the myth, the legend, head coach of your Philadelphia Waterdogs, Bill Tierney, coming up here on the pod. Really, really awesome conversation to sit down with Coach T in the format that we did. First time I've ever gotten a chance to do that. He's an absolute legend of the game. And getting to pick his brain where we see the Waterdogs right now at 1-2 going into a pivotal game before a double bye week was really, really fun to kind of just see where he's at with things and just the state of the team. And hoping we're going to be able to have Coach T on the show a lot more often because I had a ton of fun sitting down with him. He was really gracious with his time, and I have so much respect for Coach Tierney, and I I love the relationship he and I have been forging over the past couple years since he took over being the head coach of the team in 2024. And I think you guys are going to really enjoy this conversation with Coach T. But before we get into it, I want to talk to you guys about the PLL app. Guys, the PLL app is your one-stop shop for keeping up to date with everything going on in the Premier Lacrosse League and your Philadelphia Waterdogs all year long. It's a gamified app. Right now, the helmet hunt is going on in the app. It's a digital scavenger hunt to find new school, old school, vintage, and just classic helmets to add to your profile. It's a really fun scavenger hunt in the app that's going on right now. Trivia is in the app, PLL Fantasy, Pick'ems, all of it. It's in the app. Plus you get articles from the beat writers like Michael Bulger, the Philadelphia Waterdogs beat writer. You get highlights from every single game and so much more. Download the PLL app in the App Store, Google Play Store, or go to pll.app. And when you go to the redeem code section in the app, type in OTBPOD. That's OTBPOD, and you'll get 500 XP on your account. It helps you level up if you're a brand new user from level 1 to level 2. And when you level up in the app, you unlock different perks like ESPN Plus subscriptions, PLL shop discounts, and so much more. So download the PLL app, and in the redeem code section, use code OTBPOD, and you'll get 500 XP on your account, and you'll be able to keep up to date with everything going on with your Philadelphia Waterdogs and everything in the Premier Lacrosse League all season long and all year long in the PLL app. So I think without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to kick it with our awesome conversation, kick it right to it with head coach of your Philadelphia Waterdogs, Bill Tierney, for Waterdogs Weekly here on Underground Sports Philadelphia. An electric conversation that I can't wait for you guys to all hear and listen to. So without any further ado, here is your head coach of the Philadelphia Waterdogs, Bill Tierney, on Underground Sports Philadelphia for Waterdogs Weekly. All right, everybody, it's another edition of Waterdogs Weekly here on Underground Sports Philadelphia, and we are joined by a very, very, very special guest. It is the leader of the pack, head coach of your Philadelphia Waterdogs, Bill Tierney. Coach, great to see you. Great to have you on the show, and it's been a long time coming to get you on this since you joined the Waterdogs in 2024, but happy to have you this week as we head into Carolina weekend and a big one on deck on Saturday Night Lacrosse.
Thanks, Kyle. It's great to be on, and it's just continuation of trying to get better.
Going into an early season rematch, what kind of goes into that adjustment period where you guys just saw the Boston Cannons week 2, and now you're seeing them again here, just 2 game weeks later, obviously the bye week in between there, but what kind of adjustments can you guys make when it is such a quick turnaround from seeing an opponent so early on the schedule?
Well, there's 2 factors that come into that. Number one is the overwhelming defeat they handed us 2 weeks ago. I do question the schedulers on this a little bit. It's a little bit crazy, but it's an intricate process with all these teams and traveling all over the place, and it is what it is. But the other side of this is both teams have changed drastically in a short 2 weeks. So, we continue to. So I know Coach Holman, he's a great coach, he's got a great program, and they're trying to find their best lineup. We're trying to find our best lineup. We've been a little stifled with the Canadian visa process, but we're moving on, and I'm sure we'll talk about some of the injuries. But basically, it's two uniquely different teams from 2 weeks ago, and so we both have to make adjustments, not just for the other team and what they tried to do to us, and how they played last week, but the adjustments we have to make for ourselves.
And obviously, one of the big additions to the 25-man roster was Kyle Lewis, who participated in the first ever PLL Pro Day. What did you guys take away from Kyle's performance at Pro Day and being able to add him onto the roster and feel comfortable with that? Obviously going through the draft process, but then seeing him compete against other players who are capable of being on a PLL roster. How much did that influence the decision to be like, okay, we're going to add him to the 25-man?
Yeah, it's there are a lot of answers to your question. It's a great question, and a lot of factors came into it. Number one, we felt like we had needed to add to our midfield roster, whether it be as as backup type players or as starters, and so obviously with Yago and Collison and Kyle and Silas, we've added some offensive punch. But only one of them's played so far, and so with Kyle, I think what made us go in that direction um, was the fact that there are some highly successful Division two and Division three players in the league, and the fact that he was offered some significant NIL money last year by a couple of Division one schools. We got feedback from a couple of highly respected Division one coaches that this guy could have been a starter on most any Division one team. We watched him on film. I talked to people that know him personally, and everything came. There was never a but. There was never a caveat. And if you just watch this guy on film, he's, as I've been describing him to people, he's got the burst that Jack Hanna has and the speed that Michael Lampert has. And so, it's just hard for us at that point to pass up on an opportunity like that. And then certainly we asked Kyle to go to the pro day, and he was just coming off a NCAA championship game where he was basically on the field for most of the game as a midfielder, and 3 days later he's in Baltimore driving back from Long Island in a rainstorm, and putting on what I thought he was putting on a clinic, and so that gave us a few more days to because of PLL rules, it gave us a few more days to take it all in. We had to let some players go to keep, as you mentioned, a 25-man roster. But I think Kyle's going to be a hit in this league.
When you look at just the body of work that you've been tasked with since you've come in 2024, and now this year, Coach Cottle comes in at that GM role, how much of just a breath of fresh air and sigh of relief is it for you that you can really just focus on coaching and doing what you do best and not have to also double down and wear the multiple hats of the coach and GM role?
Yeah, they really, I didn't realize it when I first got into this, that would be that. I wouldn't use the word difficult because the players have been fantastic over the 3 years, but that intricate a process, first of all, with my coaching, to be honest, I haven't been the same coach that I was in college, and that's due to some of those making sure you have those GM relationships with guys, making sure they understand the how hard the cutting down process is, how heartfelt the going from 25 to 19, especially knowing the ramifications of what it means to be out of the lineup, both from an emotional standpoint and a professional standpoint, and then going back to it now, bringing Coach Cottle in, he's got to make those tough phone calls on Monday night, and to be honest, those are the things that the trades or more so the putting guys in the player pool have worked on my psyche more than I thought. And, it's still not off my plate. Dave and I talk every day, multiple times, and talk a lot about this stuff. But, I had to come into a very good team. And so, but we had some guys that were getting a little older. We had opportunities to bring in some really special people. And believe me, I didn't want to go 2-8 my first year, but when I realized that meant we'd get CJ Kirst, it made me feel a little better. And so it's a pretty intricate process. We're not talking about the NFL here, but we are talking about, young men who are high quality. As you alluded to, there are more guys in this world, in the lacrosse world, who could be in the league, and maybe aren't because of bad luck, injury. Nobody knows them, and that's what I did love about the pro day. It kind of brought some people to light that we really didn't know, and so all those things. And now what Coach Cottle does too is, I've got to deal with the guys on the sideline and locker room and all that stuff, and they are an amazing group of guys. I have no complaints about this group of guys. We had to evolve into this group of guys, and that meant through the draft or through releasing some guys or trading some guys. We had to evolve. I think the trades that we made, it's pretty evident that we made them for the right reasons, and it was good for the guys that we traded for the most part. And so I wanted that. One of the things I said when I came into the league is to our players is, A, I will not trade you unless you agree to it. And B, I will trade you if I think it's better for the longevity of your career or giving you a clear opportunity. And you think of Matt Brandau, Michael Boehm, Dylan Ward, Ben Randall. You just go through the whole list of them. Everybody that we traded has, number one, I believe, has been in a better opportunity for them, and number two, has thrived. So all that stuff combined, bringing in Coach Cottle has been a blessing. He's honest as the day is long. Sometimes the players have to accept his honesty, but at the end of the day, they do because they are professionals. Sometimes it hurts to sit a guy. It hurts to tell a guy who's been a 10-time All-American that he doesn't know, he messed something up or is not playing well. But the truth of the matter is with Dave in, it kind of reinforces, A, that we have thoughts that we still can teach some of these guys some things, and B, they have the feeling that they've been being treated like professionals and are getting told the truth. And it's a tough profession. There are hundreds more guys who could be on these rosters, and it's a little precarious for the guys that are hovering around. And you see it each week. You see it. You look at these rosters, and there's yellow lines with new guys in every roster. It's a tough part. So having Dave has been really good. It's been good for me personally because of our friendship, and he's also helping me. He's a professional, pro coach, and I'm not, and hopefully I'm getting better at it. But he's also been really good for our staff.
When you look at, when you came in 2024, coming into an organization that won a championship in 2022, went back to the championship and was one goal away from repeating, how beneficial is it to have a guy like Kieran McCardle in that locker room for you as not only the type of player he is, but also just the person and the leader he is, and just kind of an extension of you guys out on the field with the way that he carries himself and how much he cares about every single guy in that locker room?
Yeah, listen, Kieran is your consummate leader. He's a world team player. He's an All-American. He's a All-Pro guy. He's everything. And he certainly has taken on a role, maybe more so than he would have had to had he gotten a coach that had more experience in the MLL or PLL or whatever. And he and I have grown together emphatically over the last few years. And I appreciate Kieran very much. I know we talk each week, and I've asked him for honesty and truth, and he's asked me for honesty and truth, because the other side of this is this. Yes, this is two people that are trying to reach the same goals, but he's got the added burden of having to be out on that field against some of these teams and some of these defensemen that are. It's no bargain at 34 years old. And so He's handled the whole thing really well, and I continue to count on him. And we're hoping that we can, get this job done together.
And when you see just like you said, bringing in a CJ Curson, what he brings to a locker room, but then also kind of just the evolution of a guy like Michael Sowers, where he came in as that highly touted prospect, just like CJ in 2021. And, he wins a championship in his first full season of playing. And now he's kind of grown into this, as weird as it is to say, because he's still so young, this veteran leader on this team as a face of a franchise. How impressed have you just been by Michael's growth, not only on the field, but off the field?
I think you using the word grow and growth is exactly how to pinpoint Michael's career, because Michael, let's face it, coming into the pro league, going from high school to Princeton and his stellar career there, and then to Duke for a year, and into the pros. And Michael did a lot of that because he's an amazing athlete. He's one of the smartest guys I've ever coached, and he's got really great athleticism and skill. Um, so to have Kieran be that guy that could give him the lessons when he was a rookie about being a pro, about all these things that it takes in our league, and now him kind of doing the same thing with CJ, and there's a certain recognition there. I'm sure that Kieran, when Michael came in, it was Michael, Kieran, and Ethan Walker. And Ethan played for me. He's a phenomenal young man, a phenomenal player. So for Kieran to go from that, having to be the mentor role, Michael going from the immediate superstar to the middle guy who, and one thing about Michael is he's never satisfied with how he's playing, and he wants to be better all the time. And then now Michael has a little of that mentor role with the next superstar in CJ, and so it's the natural evolution of. Let's face it, the league doesn't attract any mediocre players. We've had to cut guys and that. Oh my God, they've had amazing careers, or they're just great athletes or great players, and it's not about them; it's about the fit or whatever. So I think those three are a perfect combination of, they've each gone through the process. Now Kieran's the consummate mentor. Michael is a mentor, but still a superstar. And now you got CJ, who, is, in my estimation, just the greatest in the world.
And then when you look at that too, and you see not only when you bring in CJ in that draft class, but you also draft Jake Taylor, and you just see the way that Kieran and Michael kind of took him under their wings as well. And you just see the evolution there where, Jake may not get an opportunity every week, but he's still staying ready. He's still, prepping as if he's going to play. And you see guys like Kieran and Michael take note of that and notice like, hey, this guy's doing what he's got to do, even though it's not a guarantee he's going to play. What does that for you as a coach kind of speak to the way those type of players prepare, whether or not they know they're going to be in that 19-man or not, they're still staying game ready as possible?
Yeah, and there's many of them like Jake. Yeah, this is and I say this not in a negative way, but it's a cutthroat league. And, when you do the draft in April and all the guys on the team are texting you and congratulating you for a great draft, about 3 minutes later they go, "Ooh, wait a minute, how does this affect me?" And I going into that first draft, Jake and Dylan Hess were, and Matt. Well, that when Matt Brandau and Jake were hot top on our list, and now you look at the evolution of that, and then and so it's great stuff. And Jake is a great young man who's got a unique skill set that takes a unique player, takes unique teammates to play well with that player. And like you said, it's if you're not going to be in the lineup every week, like a lot of these guys, and we're still trying to find ourselves. So we are kind of a revolving door a little bit with certain people. As you saw in the past 2 weeks, we moved 4 different short sticks in, and now this week we're going back with 3 veterans. And so, you got to find this stuff out. It's early in the season, but every game you win is a great one, and every game you lose puts you closer to elimination. So it's very cutthroat. But I love Jake, and as I said, it's hard to fit in everybody that you would want to.
What has stood out to you over these past couple of weeks now that it's, full-fledged? You obviously had him at training camp, but having Eric Law on your staff and the preparation that he helps put in during the week to get you guys ready, and just having just an absolute student of the game, a legend of the game on that sideline with you. What's it been like, seeing him kind of, put in that extra time, that extra work to, prepare these guys, and, coming straight off of an illustrious career that he had, and right back into giving back to the game as a coach?
Well, listen, I never played in the PLL. If you want a good chuckle, look back to 1974 and 75 NLL. I played in the first original NLL, which was a lot of fun, but I never played in the PLL. And Eric Law is as smart a guy. I have my handful of intelligent lacrosse players that I've been blessed to have, and that includes Ryan Boyle, Kevin Lowe, Eric Law, Ryan. Boyle is right up there with one of the smartest ever. All these guys, and Eric Law brings that to you now in a different role. But also the other good news is he's current. He knows what works in the PLL, and it's a blessing to have him. He brings in a whole different perspective than that I might have as a 100-year-old college coach, and Coach Cottle may have as a great college coach and a great pro coach, and Coach Sheridan may have as a great college coach and a great high school coach. And so it's just Coach Lou has been a club coach and a PLL coach since its inception. So we've got this really nice mix of people, and I use Eric sometimes as the ping pong ball or the mediator of some of the disagreements that we might have. And he's phenomenal with reasoning, and he's phenomenal with his experience in the league.
When you look at just the kind of collection of guys in this locker room that you either inherited, obviously coming in 2024, and then the guys you've added through free agency and through the draft, what do you think makes it so special about the culture that is in this locker room that existed before you arrived, and then the mesh of guys that you've brought in to really bring everyone together? And it feels like this group, more so than any other group in the PLL that I've been around, they're just so close knit. What do you think contributes to that culture you guys have in that locker room?
Well, culture is a thing that's got to be built, and Coach Copeland did a great job when I took the job. There was a lot of great culture, and that stemmed from a team that won a championship with a 5-5 record, and then came back the next year and almost repeated, as you said before. So obviously winning and their camaraderie, they had been together, was unique. But we had some injuries. We had some new guys come in. And as we talked about before, we had to develop a culture that was a little different. And I think we've made some steps toward that. But what's really interesting in all of it is the guys who have been so important to the current culture were the ones that were in the past culture, and they have evolved, and they've led in that role, especially as we talked about Kieran, and we talked about Michael, and Zach Currier. That guy is a special teammate, and a really special guy. Connor Kelly, Jack Hanna. These are guys that have, could have gone the other way and haven't. They've worked really hard. We've asked them to do some things. Maybe they're a little different than what they were doing. And now we've surrounded them with a bunch of puppies that have, if you looked at if culture was driven by just a majority of what you have, it would be, there'd be different music in the locker room. These young guys they're different, and yet it's been driven and evolved through the locker room, through some of the guys who've been around for a long, long time.
And I think that culture, it's just a testament when you guys can go out in free agency and make arguably the biggest splash we've ever seen in the PLL and sign a Gavin Adler, not only a defending champion, reigning defensive player of the year, but from a conference opponent and a conference rival. And, he's gone to battle against Michael Sowers for years, and he comes right into this locker room and it feels like home to him. The last guy on the roster this year, Connor Farrell, can come in after being away from the PLL for a few years and fit right in, and everybody adores the guy. And I think that's such a testament to, like you said, the Kierans and the Michael Sowers and Connor Kelly, Zach Currier, Matt DeLuca, and those guys really like being the foundation, and then having, the younger guys who have been in your tenure, the Kenny Browers and, Dylan Hess coming in, CJ Kirsten, kind of just being that meeting of the minds where anybody can walk through those doors and you're immediately part of this Waterdogs family.
Yeah, it's I'm so blessed, and obviously, as I told the guys after a disappointing loss the other night, the unfairness of athletics is that there's a scoreboard, because the joy that I have in coaching these guys and seeing them each Friday and practicing with them, my big thing and my big change in coaching has been that, and I think you and I have talked about this, is I was a practice coach, but I had 5 days a week of practice with college teams. You can micromanage, you can praise, you can get down on a guy, but you've got all this time with them. Come up to the office, let's settle this, or get your butt to the office, let's settle this, depending on what angle you're taking here. But families and all that stuff, it's different. It's really different. But again, with the young guys, they come in and they're just so wide. Their eyes are wide open. They'll do anything you ask them to do. And it's almost universal that the older guys have to tell them, relax. You're here for a reason. You're a great player. The coaches recognize that. Just go do your thing. And I think that's helped them on and off the field. Then you mentioned a guy like Connor Farrell. This guy, he is something special. He's a fun guy. He's got a big smile. He's a competitor. He cares so much, and he's a prankster too. Which kind of, when you got a locker room, you need a little giddiness especially after a loss, and a tough loss that we had 2 weeks ago against these Cannons. So I couldn't be more thrilled with coaching this group. We've had some ups and downs as far as the win and loss ledger, but we feel like we're this close, and that doesn't mean we won't lose another lacrosse game this year. Just we feel like we've got, as I said earlier, we got continue to bring in some new people, continue to try to put the pieces together, and continue to evolve, even though we're evolving in some cases with 8 and 10-year veterans of the game. Their willingness, to evolve and listen to other people's opinions has been phenomenal.
Coach Cottle was on with me a couple weeks ago, and he kind of gave me his angle and aspect of how Gavin Adler came to be in purple and white. What was that whole saga like for you? And in that, for lack of a better term, recruiting process of getting Gavin Adler to sign with the Waterdogs in free agency this winter?
It's interesting. It reminded me a lot of being a grandfather. It was like I could observe, I watched those two. I watched Coach Cottle work his magic here with this thing from both a personal standpoint with Gavin, understanding Gavin's thoughts, never a hard sell, being respectful of convincing Gavin that if he made the decision to not come with us, we would still think he's the best in the world and live with that. And that's what you do as a grandfather. You look from the outside, and even if you kind of look at it and say, well, I didn't raise my kids that way. You just step back, and then you step in when asked to kind of babysit or talk to Gavin on the phone, and then somehow it worked. And Gavin is a phenomenal young man, and he, as you mentioned earlier, I'm sure he had a little trepidation of coming into a new locker room. He was obviously a fan and team favorite with the Atlas, and rightfully so. But he came into our locker room, and it just proved how much our guys want to do well, because they welcomed him, and now he's getting more and more comfortable. He rooms with Kenny Brower, who's a kind and yet a great person, smart, and yet kind of like Gavin, is a little bit of an animal out on the field.
What's it been like getting to coach a player of his caliber too? Obviously, you being a defensive guru, your entire career from college to now the pros. What's it been like getting to be up close and personal with a player of his caliber and learn from him, learn his tendencies, and then dish out some of your knowledge to him to help him progress as a player?
It's funny you ask that. I'm doing my son Trevor and I next week are traveling to Jackson Hole, and we're speaking to this coaching group. It's called SPKN, and the Harbaugh family is going to be there. And so one of the things that I've looked at in coaching somebody like Gavin is that one thing you remember is that you can always learn. And from the first day I talked to Gavin, I said to him, I want to learn from you. One of the things I've had to clear up with our team this year is, stop the reverence of the name Bill Tierney, right? I won 7 championships, the last one in 2015. That's 11 years ago. I'm just a guy that's been around and cares about you guys, and I want you to win a championship. So if I can learn from a 26-year-old or an 18-year-old, I'm all in. And I think that's an important part of coaching. And I've learned more from Gavin than he's learned from me. Now our relationship is very comfortable. So if I say something small, on a particular play, he appreciates that. He wants to be coached. He's not one of these guys who says, hey, if somebody's telling me I'm the best in the world, why would you try to tell me that I need to do something better? He's the total opposite. He wants to be coached. He's an amazing young man. He cares deeply. He's a serious competitor. He's a student of the game. And I've really enjoyed, growing with him since in this short time we've known each other.
How impressive has it been for you too on the defensive side of things for you guys, where this defensive core is very young? They have a couple of years of experience, across the board in the PLL, and it's a very veteran-led offensive group, and then you have a young defensive core from Kenny Brower to Jimmy Freehill, now Gavin coming into the mix, Marcus Hudgens, Ben Weyer. We saw Brendan Staub this past weekend in Baltimore, and even the short sticks, relatively young group as well. And then, of all people, Matt DeLuca's the veteran back there for you guys. What's impressed you about just such a young nucleus of defensive players coming together and, meshing into one unit?
Yeah, it's been amazing, and a lot of kudos to Ben Randall, who kind of had to babysit those guys last year, and I couldn't think more highly of a guy like Ben. So, but Gavin coming in, it meant a little bit of a new leadership, a little bit of new language, stuff like that. The key to any defense in this league is the short sticks, and as I said, we've played out of the 3 games where you play 3 short sticks each. So out of 9 opportunities, I think we've had 5 or 6 that were brand new guys. And so that's huge. And trying to keep that in sync with Kenny, Jimmy, Gavin, Marcus, Ben, that's a really solid group. And to bring Brendan in now is just another addition to a guy who knows how to play. So it's just one of those things where we have to get settled in with our shorties, and once that starts clicking, which I thought it did in the second half of last game, we finally started to not slide when we didn't need to, slide when we did need to, protect certain areas of the field, know who the highlight players were. I think as we said to our team, we're this close, and we've had great guys in the background of that defense. This past week I had to put 2 of my favorite people in the player pool that played for me at the University of Denver. 3 of them, actually, counting Michael Lampert, but he's an offensive guy. But Jack DiBenedetto is a phenomenal defender. Malik Sparrow is a phenomenal athlete. And as we talked about earlier, it's the nature of the league and the nature of a young defense. So every time we walk on the field, every time we meet, every time we have a Zoom call, we take another step forward, and we're going to try to continue to do that this week. Obviously, with Gavin being out, there's going to be another little tweak to the system here, but I think we're getting to know each other better, and it'll get better as the year goes on.
You mentioned in the press conference this past weekend too, when you were talking about early on, you played CJ Kirst at midfield, and then you realized, I got to play this guy at attack. It also felt like you guys made that adjustment with Jimmy Freehill, because early on you had Marcus Hudgens playing some close D, and Jimmy Freehill was at LSM with Ben, and it felt like it was just a smidge off with Jimmy, like he had it, but then you move him back to close defense, and something clicked for him, and he's really evolved into an elite caliber defender in the PLL. What went into you recognizing that decision to really unlock a player who I think not a lot of people had on their radar in that draft, and you took him? You obviously knew him from Denver and everything, but what kind of went into that kind of tweak there to recognize, hey, if I move Jimmy back to defense with Kenny and at the time with Ben Randall, it's going to make our defense better?
It's a funny and timely question, because we feel like one of the advantages of our team, other than Kenny and Gavin, is that the other 4 guys now with Ben, they can play anywhere. Brendan Staub played 2 years at pole and then 2 years at close. Marcus has done an amazing job in the midfield. He can play close. Ben Ware would probably, like Gavin and Kenny, being definite close guys. Ben is the one definite pole, because he's got such uniquely talented skills with the ball, with the running, with the shooting type thing. So between Jimmy, Marcus, and now Brendan, I feel like we've got 3 rotating parts. There are teams that we have to defend one way or another. And one of the things we thought we were going to have to pound into this team's head, but we haven't, because they've been so amenable to anything we've asked them to do, is to be flexible. And it might be, there was I think in our first game against the Whips, we felt like we needed to play double pole. And so Jimmy went up in that game. So you never really know what's going to happen, but I do know that they're all willing to do whatever we ask them to do. And at both ends, because I know every guy in this league has his opinions. And so if included in that opinion is the belief that we all need to be on the same page, which it is on our team, then you're okay. But if everybody says, no, that's different, we got to do it this way, now you got problems. Because all the teams are really talented. And, the ebb and flow of the season is interesting. And, you can predict who stinks right now and they'll be great later, and who's great right now, they'll stink later. And it'll just go in waves because of, a great goalie play or a great face-off game, or somebody goes off with 6 goals or something like that. You just don't know what's going to happen in this league.
You mentioned the Whip Snakes, and I know you and Coach Stagnita have such a very close and unique and fun relationship. When you see him, break that all-time record for wins last weekend, how special was that for you to kind of see somebody that you go back with, decades, and just seeing the work he's put in and to be able to, reach that mountaintop and that accomplishment? How special was that for you?
Yeah, it's interesting because I've known Jimmy since he's 18 years old. One of my best friends, Tony Seaman, was the coach at Penn, was Jimmy's coach at Penn. And I went to one of their playoff games up at the Dome, and I just got to meet him and have known him ever since, more so in the coaching ranks. But again, like a lot of these things, like I was talking about learning from Gavin, Jimmy grew up working for Dave Cottle and I and Tony Seaman in our top 205 camps. Jimmy was a young and upcomer. He'd had a great coaching career at the college level at both, Penn and Washington and Lee and then Rutgers and all these things that he does, the leadership things. So it's interesting when I came into the league, the first person I called was Jimmy Stagnita, and I got an answer I called every guy, and I asked them, just answer one question. Don't tell me anything about players. I'm not asking you for any secrets. But the first one was Jimmy, and I called each one and I said, tell me one thing about coaching in this league. And Jimmy's answer to that was, just remember, we're all liars. And so I've tried to keep that in the back of my mind. But it's just, to see Allie and her baby. And Allie I've known since she was a baby. Sometimes these moments, you've had. Listen, I've been blessed in my career, far more than I ever should have been. But part of that is watching the growth of people, and then watching Jimmy and his family and all that stuff. And then you have this moment, and to be honest, I wasn't cognizant of the moment until I got out there. And it kind of makes you quickly go back and remember as many of the other moments that you can, and then appreciate the fact that you've evolved so much in your life with this other person that the teacher has become the student and the student has become the teacher. And I think there's a lot of benefit in that.
You talk about when you came into the league, what initially during that process of the Waterdogs going on that coaching search intrigued you about, taking the interview for the job, and what impressed you and intrigued you about the PLL as a whole? Obviously being a college coach, and coming into the pro ranks, what kind of challenge or intrigue did you see from the opportunity of coaching at the professional level? And when you do get the job, what was kind of the initial just reaction to this next step of your career?
Yeah, going into the job, I think what I was enamored with was the fact that I was 7 months removed from retirement, went golfing a couple of times, and when you go golfing and you're in this triple figures, it's not a good thing. And so when I got this call to ask if I would consider it or be in the pool of coaches they were going to interview, one thing I've always said in life is you never don't listen, And so we went into it clearly with Ethan and Jack on the team. They encouraged me to go for this thing. And then on the interview Zoom call, I was so impressed with the guys, impressed with their questions. it stopped retirement in its tracks. I was writing my book at the time. I continue to write my book, but I have to stop in the summer. And I felt like I wasn't done yet. And then since being in the PLL, the second part of your question is I've learned so much being in the PLL, and I think I got some great advice a long, long time ago. A guy named Fred Hargadon was our dean of admissions at Princeton, and we had done pretty well. And then I forget what year it was, but we had kind of a down year. Or I don't know if you remember, you were probably too young, but there was a thing called the Lax Power Forum, which was an online, basically slam book is what it was. It was the precursor to lacrosse social media. And so I talked to Fred, and I was getting whacked pretty good. We got killed by Syracuse in a game or something like that. And Fred gave me lifetime advice. And what he said was, he said, Bill, the only thing that matters, he said, all this stuff is just noise. The only thing that matters is the people you love and the people who love you. And I've taken that and I've given that advice to a lot of people since then. And so, coming into the league, I think, and now my growth of, number one, getting to know them better, but number two, in my admiration for Paul and Mike Rabel has grown exponentially because I see the inside now. I see 250 to 300 people traveling every weekend, the logistics of that, the finance of that, how they treat these players, the equipment, the what you guys do, the being on ESPN, the facilities, the food, everything is just so first class that my admiration for them has grown, which means my admiration for the PLL. One of the things that I like the most about the PLL is the hotels when all 8 teams are there. You see guys, and everybody's got their different competitive style, and but at the end of the day, I get a kick out of the fact that 3 weeks ago, CJ Kirst and Zach Curry were trying to kill each other in the NLL, and now they're best buddies in the PLL, and vice versa, by the way. And so I just admire these players, admires these coaches that have been around in a lot of cases for a long time, Stags and Chris and Sudo and those guys. It's just been it's just been so impressive. And the only, as I told the guys the other night, that what's hard about such a premier league is that everybody's good. And advice my dad gave me back when I was 8 years old was, if you're going to decide to compete in athletics, you got to remember that other than in soccer, there's always a winner and a loser. And you better be able to deal with it or don't do it.
On top of, the way your admiration for Mike and Paul has grown, obviously from the lacrosse standpoint, and having a Princeton alum and Rachel DeCecco around has to be pretty cool to just see her growth, as well as from player to now just running the lacrosse side of things for both the PLL and WLL. What's your relationship like with Rachel, and kind of being in contact with her on game day every single week?
Well, it's you kind of allude to that, is that and having my nephew get yelled at by me because of a shot clock violation or something is kind of unique. Talk about another go-around situation. But, Rachel was one of my favorite female athletes in my whole career because she was such a competitor. I mean, she was the defensive person of the year, and just an athlete. And I think that the thing that I admire most about Rachel is she gets it, and that can be an all-encompassing statement. but she gets it. She gets it when you're upset. She gets it when you're happy. She gets the ups and downs of this profession. She gets how to make sure that everybody's on the same page. And yet, for me personally, having that ability, in the '90s to watch her compete, I'm probably one of the few that's able to say that she's the same person now that she was then. She's still competitive. She wants to be the best at her craft. Obviously, Paul and Mike and Seth and those people see so much in her. She's the boss of the bosses. And yet I know deep down, I always kid her about her relationship with the other coaches, and because I'm jealous of that, but I know when I see that the way she communicates and integrates herself from a league standpoint, but yet personal standpoint with each and every player and each and every coach, it's tough not to put her on a pedestal.
You've joked in press conferences in years past about, your experiences being the opponent of coaching in Philadelphia. What have you learned since, the Waterdogs have become Philadelphia's team, just about the fans and the passion and being on the positive side of those and not being the enemy in Philadelphia?
Yeah, Philadelphia is a special place in my heart, as you've heard me say before. I've won there. I won my first national championship there in 1992. I've had some great experiences there, and from a personal standpoint and from a professional standpoint. And so that's another thing that drew me to this job, even though it's funny when people who are, in and out type fans of the PLL say, "Oh, where are you living in Philadelphia?" I go, "Denver," and it's kind of it's the running joke. But again, going back to Paul and Mike, they're always a step or two ahead of what's current. And that's a really rare trait. So by putting Philadelphia on it and New York on it and, Utah on it, yeah, I think some people, the naysayers of the world, they will say, "Oh, that's stupid. Why would you have a name on a team that's not there?" When you show up for those double headers in Philadelphia, you'll find out why, and the turnout you're going to see this weekend in Charlotte, you'll find out why. It's just Philly's a special place. It reminds me, Philadelphia people remind me a lot of the people I grew up on Long Island with. There's no BS. You may not like what you hear, but you're going to hear it, and you're going to hear what they think. You're going to hear the truth. But the flip side is there's no more loyal people either, And so I know I could go back to my friends on Long Island, and they'd be there for me, and I would be the same. And I think it's the same with the fandom of Philadelphia. It's quite a special place, and you better have thick skin, but you better also be ready to celebrate, because if they're celebrating with everybody involved.
I think it shows itself too. Obviously 2022, before they were the Philadelphia Waterdogs, they win a championship in Philadelphia, and you just see the turnout there for just Waterdogs fans. And then you go and fast forward to last season when you guys have a playoff game there, and just the turnout at Subaru Park for you guys in a playoff game. Like, it felt like a home game for you guys, and obviously not the results you guys wanted, but to have those fans there for a playoff game had to put a little bit of juice behind you guys, during some of those tough stretches as well.
Yeah, there's no doubt. In fact, how close I am with Trevor Baptiste, and talking to Trevor after the game, he said, "God, we felt like we were the away team. We were the favorites. We were supposed to win this thing, and everybody's going crazy for you guys." And it did give us a lift. And as every game in this league, you look back and you say, if this, if that. I'd certainly look back to last week, and you can say, you know, Matt Witcher was Matt Witcher had a 2-pointer that hit a pipe, bounced all the way to the midline, and turned into a 3-on-1 for them. That's a 3-goal swing, and you lose by 2. But there's a lot of buts in this league, a lot of caveats in this league. Every coach can go back to something that happened that can say, well, if this had happened, that would have been. As my dad used to say, if ifs and buts were beer and nuts, we'd have quite a party, and that's the way it goes, and you better be ready to accept that.
You mentioned too, week 1 this year that, the first thing Kieran McCardle told you about in this league was you got to be aware and you got to be prepared for the 2-pointer in this league. What have you learned in these 3 years, of just not necessarily hunting the twos like we've talked about, but just having them in your repertoire and knowing you have guys on this roster that if you need those shots from range, you can rely on them to feel comfortable taking those shots to really swing a game in a completely different direction.
Yeah, and speaking of that Atlas game, we almost did that, in last year's chaos game in Utah. We came back from down 4 in the last 2 minutes, but it's an up and down thing with this 2-pointer, and now we're playing a team that has 4 2-point capable guys. So it's it's on your mind. It's always on your mind, and it's such a game swinger. On the other hand, you have to have it on your mind for strategy. If you go back to that, and I would never say we want the other team to score, but we had a pretty good lead against the Whips. We were up 15-9 and started to have a rough fourth quarter trying to protect the lead. And we got 2 penalties in a row. We didn't play man down the way we normally play man down. And Matt Brandau's smart enough to know that if that bottom left guy is open, I'm going to get it to him. And he did twice in a row. But honestly, that took 2 to 3 minutes off the clock, and it was only 2 points on 2 goals. Had we let two shots go from the outside, especially from Smith, who seems to have a career of 2-pointers against us, that would have been 4 points and it would have been a tie game. So, there's a lot of things that go into the thinking. You were around last year when we lost 20-19 to the Atlas. And as I told my team after that, I've never been happy after a loss, but I've never even been as satisfied after a loss than I was with that one, because that put us in the tournament.
And even on top of that, in a joking manner, I'm sure you were thrilled to see Zach Tucci got released from the Cannons this week, because he always somehow found a way off the face-off to find a way to hit a 2-pointer on you guys.
I'll tell you something. I'm probably shouldn't tell you this, but I'm going to anyway, is if Connor Farrell wasn't doing so good, I would have picked Tucci up this week to play against the Cannons. But, they've got a phenomenal one in McMeekin, and believe me, that's a 4:30 in the morning headache.
100%. I mean, you look at the guys that you have capable of those 2-pointers too, from Connor Kelly, who, year over year finds himself at the top of the standings in 2-point goals in this league for years now. You got a guy like Ben Weyer, who has found his shot, like you mentioned, in transition, can kind of, find his shot from the 2-point range. And I think you have guys too that they haven't necessarily shown it, but I think they're capable of doing it. And one of those guys is Jack Hanna to me. What do you see from Jack's game from when you were coaching him in college to now, and how he's evolved as a player and what he's added to his bag and his repertoire to become just such an all-world midfielder?
I think, and I'm biased obviously, but I think Jack's the best midi in the world. And we've probably asked Jack to do too much. We probably haven't let him play his game. And, and when I think of that, I also think of some of the passes he's thrown, some of the picks he's set, some of the times he's hustled back on defense, some of the leadership he gives us. All those things come into play, and so with that in mind, I know he can hit it too. It's not that far. I've seen him shoot from further out than that. And so all those guys have a green light. Certainly, Connor is the one that we've probably put too much on Connor's plate to make him think of himself. Oh, I'm the 2-point guy. Connor's a phenomenal midfielder. And Jimmy Freehill has stuck one, and like you mentioned, Ben Ware, and the other night, Witcher almost had one, and we got a guy coming in. Hopefully, when these Canadian visas come through, Matt Collison can shoot from there, and so we feel like we have that, and but I don't like. Like the other night, we were kind of got to the point where we're down 2. We're looking for a 2. Once you start looking for a 2, it's really hard to pull off. But having those guys in the crowd, and I think when Josh Yago gets comfortable, he can shoot. So we've got that capability. We'll never take that away from the guys. They've got to know who they are, and we'll see what happens with it. But it is important, and it's a game changer.
You bring up Matt Collison and obviously Silas Richmond as well. We talked at the draft where you said you guys didn't expect Silas to fall to number 5, and when he did, it's one of those things where you can't say no to a player of his caliber, and you were nervous that Matt Collison wasn't going to be available when you guys swung around to 13, and then there he was. To be able to have those 2 guys also kind of waiting in the wings, like you said, obviously waiting on the visas and stuff, and Silas to get, healed up from the tournament and everything. But when you have 2 guys of that caliber of player ready to come into this group, how exciting is that for you, for Coach Sheridan, for Eric Law, for Coach Lou, to be able to have just 2 supremely talented blue chip players from one singular draft class coming in to really just give you guys different looks?
Yeah, it's a great question, and yet it's a challenge because again, going back to what we originally talked about, you can only play 19, and so what I've been trying to do is move people in and out. Some of the injuries have forced us to move people in and out, and I'm trying to find. I've kind of set the middle of July as being somewhat of a landmark of trying to get that final run of we have 8 games in 7 weeks, and so we want to be pretty clear with that. Now, when you have double headers, which we have 2 of, and thank you to the schedule makers at ESPN, you are allowed 2 more guys, so at least to be there and be ready. So we'll have a little bit of shake there, but we continue to evolve. There's been enough written about these guys. There's been enough hype about these guys. Our veterans at those positions are not fools. They know that they've got to produce. And so I think now that I really believe that, as I mentioned earlier, I believe we're close. That doesn't mean we won't lose another game or 2 or 6. It doesn't. I believe we're close in who we want to be and what we're going to be. And then all of a sudden you bring another new guy or 2 in the middle of June or late in June now, because we have these 2 buys coming up. So it'll be a continuation of trying to find out what our best 19 is, and it's going to be one thing, Coach Cottle and I insist on is it's going to be our best 19 at that moment, barring injury, and hopefully we get some injured guys back by then, and we have a full team, and we don't have a full team yet.
And you mentioned, the most important position on the field is that short stick defensive midfielder spot. You're never going to replace an athlete and a player of Dylan Hess's caliber, obviously, with his injury this season, but what's kind of the course of action for you guys to fill his shoes to the best of your ability?
Well, I haven't found that right course yet, and we continue to work on it. We brought Casey Wilson back, who played for me at Denver as a Canadian World Team guy as a sophomore in college. He's phenomenal, and you know, he came off the field hobbling the other night, so he's not playing this week. So we continue this carousel of short sticks. We have a few guys that I think can play at both ends, and we'll ride the Charlie Hayes and Matt Witcher wave as far as we can, and see what happens. We're thankful we have the best Swiss Army knife guy in the league in Zach Currier, and so he can play both ends. Thomas McConvey surprisingly can play both ends. Another guy that's really interesting, that's really willing to go down there, is Connor Kelly, and I've seen Jack Hanna pound guys at that end. So we're okay there. I'd like to get Casey back. I'd like to evolve a couple of these young guys that we've tried. It's hard to ask. It's hard to ask somebody to come in. When we first played the Cannons, we had two brand new guys we're asking Nakai Montgomery, who's a phenomenal offensive player, to play shorty, and Tate Gallagher did a great job for us. And then we bring in, we're able to bring in Casey and Patty Eldridge, and just we got to find what's right, because the first thing you've got to do is qualify for the tournament. The next thing you got to do is be ready to win the thing, and the qualifications for the tournament started 3 weeks ago. So we continue on that trying to win path, trying to prepare path, and then being ready for the end path.
We talked preseason too, about Matt DeLuca stepping into this goalie role and being the full-fledged starter for the first time really in his career. Obviously, Dylan Ward being his mentor and learning from him and being such a resource for you guys on the sidelines as the backup. But what have you seen from Matt this year, finally taking on that challenge? And I know you mentioned after that first Cannons game, the defense has to, be in better position to support Matt and let him be the goalie that got hot rather than, Colin Kirst the way he did. What have you seen from Matt taking on this challenge of being the full-time starter so far through 3 games?
Yeah, it continues to be a challenge. I think we've seen some already this season. We've seen some resiliency from Matt. I thought he bounced back the other night, pretty well. I know there's a couple he would like to have back, but he also made 3 or 4 phenomenal saves in that second half. And nobody's envious of the goalie position, and so it is what it is. We feel that we've got a phenomenal next option in Sean Byrne, and if it comes to that point where he's got to play, then he'll play. What I know about Matt DeLuca is a phenomenal person who cares deeply about his teammates, who is a student of the goalie position, and has made some adjustments over the course of his career that help him be a really good PLL goalie. And it's not pleasant having these guys shoot, especially the way we played such poor defense against the Boston last time, that kind of hung them out to dry, and then it gets in your head, and then you don't play well, and all that stuff. As long as the defense is playing well in front of them, Matt's a really, really good goalie.
When you have, like we mentioned earlier, just the quick turnaround of playing an opponent again so early in the season, and knowing the score differential tiebreaker being so pivotal in this league as the number one in the tiebreaker category, and just going up against a team that, you remember that as a player. You remember what that team did to you. How much do you guys as a coaching staff, allow the players to kind of remember, like, hey, this happened to us not that long ago, but you also can't dwell on it, and you've got to grow from it. You've got to learn from it so that when it comes to this coming Saturday night, we're the ones coming out on top.
Yeah, I kind of alluded to a 3-step process: remember, forget, and remember again, when you get out on that field, because if you dwell on it too much and it's just remember, now doubts come in your mind. So you gotta when you get off the field that night, you gotta put it in your memory bank that it was an embarrassment, and but you got to forget it, because we got to move forward. I thought we showed uh, our ability to forget that first game, that second game, or the first one against the Cannons the other night against the Chaos. I thought other than I would have liked to face another goalie other than Blaze the other night, but still, I thought other than our shooting acumen or luck or ability, whatever, however you describe it, I thought we played a much better game. I thought we were tougher defensively, and so I think we did forget it. Now we're playing the Cannons again. Now you got to remember a little bit and remember that feeling when you walked off the field, and make sure it doesn't happen again.
And you mentioned it too. Obviously, after this game, there's that double bye and getting guys healthy, but also what kind of challenges go into a sport like lacrosse, where you mentioned you're only practicing once a week together, and now you have 2 weeks off where you're not going to really see each other in an organized way. What are kind of the challenges there for you as a coach to make sure everything is still kind of going system as usual?
Well, I'm going to try and take a lesson from the Redwoods this weekend, because they just went through it, and talk to AK and see what they did. But I, in one way, it's bothersome, because it's just too much time away from each other. It really is. On the other hand, these guys are professionals. They all have jobs. Many of them have families. They wouldn't be in the position they're in if they didn't take care of their bodies. And so I have all the confidence in the world that our guys will do the right thing. If some of them may need a couple of days rest, I'm fine with that. Way back when I was blessed to be in a bunch of Final Fours, and you had that bye week, I always gave the team off until Wednesday, because there's rest is not just physical; it's mental, it's emotional, it's social, it's spiritual, it's anything you can conjure up. But so we'll play it like that. We'll still have a Zoom call. We'll still get ready for that next game, and try to look at the advantages we have by being rested, and count on the guys. Perfect example. Last night, hooking up with CJ. I try to talk to most of the players every week. CJ's on a train from New York City after a day's work on a Wednesday. He's on a train to Long Island to grab Brendan Staub and Kyle Lewis to work out at Garden City High School. Like, who does that? The guys in New York, they're always together, and it's even guys from different teams, and Jimmy Friel and Mikey Lampert and Marcus Hudgens, they work out with Aiden Carroll. It's because these guys are professionals. These guys know what it takes. Yeah, for those 2 hours, you got to go against a friend or somebody you've been up against, or somebody who you played against. That doesn't matter. What matters is they stay in shape, they do the right thing, and I have all the confidence in the world that not only our players, but our leaders will be in touch with them, and I know our coaching staff will be hard at work over that 2 years. And the bonus is we get some guys that are really important to this team healed up and ready to go, and we get a couple of new guys that I think are really going to be really important to this team back in the lineup. So we'll see how it works.
I know Princeton is a special place for you. How awesome was it seeing them hoist that trophy at the Final Four and be national champions for the first time in a long time?
Well, what's more interesting about it, number one, I couldn't be more happy for that group. Matt Madelon and his staff have worked really hard, and they've been close, but that Ivy League is a tough league. competing with some of the other teams and their coaches that are in that league, it's a challenge. And for them to come through, they had a special team with special guys, and and so extremely thrilled for those guys. Throwing into that the fact that over time, and again, always go back to the fact that I've been so blessed in my career with these championships. Often people have asked me, "Well, what's your favorite one?" And when you're part of 7 championships and 2 at Hopkins and 1 as a player and 1 as U.S. team coach, you kind of there's a lot there. And as I always say, I've been blessed a lot more than I deserve. But to have a team in 2001 where both your sons are on the team, and your son Trevor's the starting goalie, and Brendan the year before scored the winning goal against Virginia to put us in the championship game. There is no more emotion than that. And then how weird is this that, anybody that thinks that life doesn't have meaning, how is it that 25 years later, we're going back to celebrate that championship? Princeton is in the championship, in the Final Four. They're running off the field at halftime with an 11-3 lead, where the NCAA puts the 25-year championship team, because they're going to be honored on the field next, is 10 feet away from Princeton's locker room. And so I don't know if you saw it or not, but on TV, the coming together of those two groups, there was a net, because it would have been insane. But this is why I just think there's a greater purpose in everything we do, and God gives us a challenge, and God gives us a path to who we're supposed to be and what we're supposed to be, and yet He kind of looks down and laughs once in a while, and I think He was laughing at that, the euphoria of that freak nature of that, and we had a party on Sunday night, the night before the championship, that was supposed to be 75 people at a celebration of the 2001 team and their families. Ryan Mollett, who has done really well, was on the first draft choice in the MLL draft, and my son Trevor was the second, that which is kind of funny, and Matt Strebel was right up there. We had this get together that was supposed to be 75 people, turned into 300-400 people, and they closed this bar, and it was just a celebration of Princeton lacrosse. And I got a chance to speak at it, and I'll tell you, it was a pretty memorable event, and something I'll never forget.
When you see today, I don't know if you saw the entire list, but the next class of lacrosse Hall of Famers gets announced today, and a former Waterdog on that list, Brody Merrill, who just a consummate pro contributor to the game, the only player to have an award named after him in the PLL before he retires. What makes Brody Merrill so special, and how awesome is it to see him have his career kind of finally put into that pantheon in the Pro Lacrosse Hall of Fame?
Yeah, I mean, Brody he represents so many things. You could go on one topic. Canadian guy who brought this NLL and PLL and MLL stuff all together. College unknown at Georgetown until he became the best pole, one of the best poles in the world, to his professional career, and what he did. God knows how many professional accolades he has, to the World Games and how many accolades he has there, and to starting the Hill Academy and getting that thing growing, which has given so many Canadian young men an opportunity for scholarship and the opportunity to play NCAA lacrosse and eventually NLL and PLL lacrosse. And yet I think the one that tops them all is Brody as a person. He's just kind and honorable, and everybody in life can go through somebody not liking him. Well, I have never met that person when it comes to Brody Merrill, and so it's quite an honor.
Also, thinking about the culture of this Waterdogs team too, I think it's pretty special when a coach steps down and, obviously his replacement comes in, but he still finds a way to come out and support the team he once coached. And I think it's really special every year at Fairfield when I run into Andy Copeland and he's out because he wants to see the guys, competing that he coached and wants to still be there to support him. How special is that for you to kind of see the guy that you succeeded once he stepped down to still come out and show his support for the Waterdogs and show support for the guys that he coached, won a championship with, and still want to, see those guys succeed?
Listen, it's first of all, Andy and I go way back. He was one of Coach Cottle's assistants at Maryland and did a phenomenal job at Fairfield. We coached against each other when I went out to Denver. Denver and Fairfield were in the same ECAC league for a few years. And he's just an amazing person with a young family, and that can get in the way of summer entertainment, so to speak. And he's a high regard guy. He regards everybody he meets, and he is to be regarded by everybody he meets. And so that made it easy. And then continuing on from that, he helped me a great deal in that first year of understanding the role, understanding some of the guys, helping them keep it all together when we were going through some growing pains together. And so I give him a lot of credit, and always first class guy, never a backstabber, never said anything negative about anybody. And, I'm thankful for Andy for the friendship and the mentorship he gave me as we moved into this thing.
Coach, obviously a big one coming up on Saturday night, another Saturday night lacrosse game for you guys as well on that prime time on ESPN. Some challenges, obviously, like we mentioned, Gavin's going to be out, Casey Wilson's going to be out, but what goes into this preparation for this Cannons team again, and just being, aware of what they can present to you and the way that they've evolved, like you mentioned, from that first meeting, and being prepared for what's going to be a high octane, very physical matchup against a conference rival.
Yeah, it's a challenge, certainly a challenge when you just look at their team. And as we talked about, who they throw at you. And that's going to be the biggest challenge. After that, it's the mental challenge of coming back and beating somebody who beat you 19-5, and making that effort to do so. But I think overall, it's in this league, most of the games are pretty tight, and I assume that, or I'm hopeful that it is that, and that we're able to show ourselves. So in preparing, listen, Brian Holman is no fool. He's not just gonna sit on his laurels and say, "Oh, we won 19-5, we got this thing." He may feel that. I don't. I don't think so. But Brian's a smart guy. He's a smart coach. Their team has a unique style of play. They have, they just go at you, and so you got to be ready. But overall, it's going to be a big game for us when it comes into this break. This 2-week break, because if you can win it, it kind of kicks you off into feeling good about the rest of the season. If you lose it, you got to continue on this journey of soul searching and figuring out what we can do better. And because each team is so different, even though I feel like defensively and offensively, you got to play a little different against each team. You have to fight through the emotion of it all as well. So it's certainly a rivalry. It's an Eastern Division rivalry. It's you alluded to it before with the goal differential, and certainly we're way down on that because of the Cannons game. And we learned last year how important that goal differential is by getting in the playoffs by 1 point or 2 points in the goal differential. And we're behind the 8 ball with that right now. So, but we can't expect anything other than a tough game. And if we're capable of winning it, as we always say to our team, it doesn't matter in this league. You can win by half a goal, and it's still a big win, and you can, and yet it's so easy to lose by a fluke or a 2-point shot or a bad bounce. But it's going to be another PLL weekend, and they're always unique and they're always fun for the fans.
What does past last week, this week, WLL also involved? What's impressed you so far about the 10v10 format with the women's game and just their athleticism and the compete that they have? And hopefully down the line we'll have a pairing with the Waterdogs to have a Philadelphia WLL team. But what's stood out to you the past couple of game weekends that there's been WLL action?
No, we got to watch when we were in Providence. We got to watch side by side with one of the women's teams, with the Boston team actually, and I'm standing there watching this thing, and I'm in awe. My daughter Brian is a head women's lacrosse coach at Kent State in Ohio, and I watched them, and I watched a lot of women's games here at Denver, and certainly when I was at Princeton with Chris Saylor winning those championships, it was just, I've always been in awe of the women's game. You mentioned Rachel before, and but this is special. This is special. I think the coming together of the understanding. There's a couple of things that I think need to be cleaned up, but the beauty of the game and the skill level, it's almost impossible to cover some of these women, and then you give them a free shot from 8 yards, which, that's like, I don't know. Can you imagine giving some of these shooters, giving Newman a 12-yard shot, like that's what it's akin to, and it's insane. I'd like to see a little bit less time taken after a goal. And I think there's still a confluence of the way the game is adjudicated and the high level and high speed of the way it's being played in the WLL. But it's their opening year, and there's always tweaks. And what we've learned over the years is if anybody can tweak something, it's Paul Rabel, And so between Seth and Rachel and the ESPN people, it's just one of those situations that it can be handled, and it will be. But just to stand back and watch them is phenomenal. I think it's cool that they've had some of the female players. Certainly Dana has played college lacrosse, and some of the others that they brought on, the commentating. And it's just so much fun to see. And, my bias with my two daughters is they both were, phenomenal college athletes and got that chance. And I think giving these women a chance that they clearly have earned and deserve and are a long time coming is going to make more and more fans of women's lacrosse, and anything that says lacrosse on it is good for the game.
I'm intrigued to see what your answer to this will be. We've had Michael Sowers, we've had Matt DeLuca and Jake Taylor on this year as players, but from a coaching perspective, who would you like to see hop on the show with me throughout this season, either next week or just moving forward? Who's a player that you think would be a ton of fun to sit down with?
Well, if you want fun, you get Connor Farrell on this show. Yeah, because the guy, he's such a prankster and he's so much fun. And he's so good for the locker room. But I think a lot of these guys bring a really different perspective of it all. I'm not sure if fun is the word, but it'd be interesting to get Yago and Byrne on as a comparison of the Army Air Force thing. Those guys are dialed in, man, and they are really good people, team first people. You could go, at some point you're going to meet Silas Richmond, who's a total different cat, man. This guy he is a lacrosse junkie, if there ever has been one, and so you can go down this roster, but I obviously have a bias towards a couple of my guys that have, it might be interesting for you to get Stath and DB, and I mean Stath and Hannah on, and these poor guys have suffered playing for me in college and playing for me now, so some interesting stuff like that, I think is always good for the show. It's always good for the Waterdogs, and it's just my honor to have gotten to know these guys, and there's so many over the years, and maybe even interesting the yin and yang of all the Denver guys. You got Logan, you got Trevor, you got you had Colin Squires and Hannah and Stath, and even the guys that aren't with us right now. It's just it was a cool. You talked about culture before. The culture at Denver was one of an underdog mentality that came in kind of stray dogs. Nobody knew them. Nobody recruited them. And then how did this thing all come together to win a championship in Philadelphia? So
it all comes together there, Coach.
Yeah, it really all comes together. So,
obviously, like we said, a big one on Saturday night. What's kind of the message to the guys, message to everybody for, a conference matchup, prime time against the Boston Cannons 2.0?
Yeah, I think it's just it's in one way you have to treat it like another game because there's 12 of them, but the conference thing, the rivalry thing, the history of the two teams thing, the 19-5 thing. There's a lot going on here, and one of us is going to be 2-2, and one of us is going to be 1-3 at the end of this thing. So whatever motivates the guys. In some cases, guys get motivated by fear. In other cases, guys get motivated by revenge. In other cases, guys get just motivated by the pure joy of going out there and playing like a Zach Currier does every week, and CJ Kirst does every week. They don't worry about anything. They just go out and give everything they've got. And so I think it's a combination of all those things and total respect that we have for the Cannons.
Coach, wishing you the best of luck. I'll be seeing you via Zoom on the press conference afterwards, and hopefully we're talking about a big Waterdogs win as you guys head into your bye weeks. And I really appreciate the relationship we've been able to build over these past couple of years and continue to build. I have nothing but respect for you, and hopefully we'll be able to do this again soon.
I appreciate it, Kyle, and thanks for having me on.
Big shout out to Coach Tierney and Grace Hamilton for making this week's Waterdogs Weekly possible. It was an awesome time. Like I said, being able to sit down with Coach T for that extended amount of time and just one-on-one was a ton of fun, and hoping we'll be able to do it again in the near future on this show, because I think he's truly one of the best minds in the game and just an absolute legend. So to be able to have that here for you guys was a ton of fun. And before we keep it pushing, I want to talk to you guys about our friends over at Kenwood Original Beer, the official beer partner of Underground Sports Philadelphia. It's a refreshing light beer, just 4.1% ABV, 120 calories, just 8 grams of carbs. You guys can go to kenwoodbeer.com, use the Kenny Finder. So you've got Kenwood Original Beer on tap in the Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Maryland, Delaware, and New Jersey areas. You can also find Kenwood Original Beer at your local liquor stores, convenience stores, and grocery stores in those markets. Just use the Kenny Finder at kenwoodbeer.com to see who's got it available nearest you. Must be 21 or older to do so. And as always, guys, please drink responsibly. Also want to talk to you guys about our awesome presenting partner, the City of Vineland. And whether you're a company looking to expand, relocate, or you're a new business startup, selecting the right location is critical to your success. Vineland, New Jersey offers both an affordable business location and an excellent quality of life. The city's economic development department is a one-stop source for moving your project through the development and approval process, and their goal is to make this process as smooth as possible and to provide the fastest turnaround times in the region. If you're considering potential locations for your operation, contact the Vineland Economic Development Team at 856-794-4100. That's 856-794-4100. Vineland, New Jersey, where it's always growing season.
The Vineland Municipal Utilities is committed to helping your business succeed. As a community-owned utility, our focus is on service, not profit. From site planning to powering your operations, we can help you achieve your strategic goals. Whether it's a customized cost analysis of your usage needs, engineering support to ensure a smooth interconnection, or offering lower rates than neighboring utilities, we want to be your partner in creating an environment for long-term success. Vineland, New Jersey, where it's always growing season.
Last bit here, the A.J. Brown stuff of it all. A lot of stuff circulating out there after he did the podcast 7 p.m. in Brooklyn with Maria Taylor, who I have a ton of respect for Maria Taylor. I think she's one of the best in the business. You guys know I'm a huge A.J. Brown fan. I have been since he was in Tennessee. The more he has spoken, the more pissed off and annoyed I've gotten. It is really just rubbed me the wrong way with so much of it. From him just like AIing the Patriots logos onto a jersey and saying he's had a Patriots rug in his house since he was a kid. It's clearly from Amazon. To saying he would say stuff in the media to motivate the team. He requested a trade after we started 4-0. A lot of it is just rubbing me the wrong way. And I know it's the trade is still just, 3 days old or whatever, but the sooner we can just put this all to bed and just not continually bring it up and just continue to beat this dead horse, the better off we'll be. It's unfortunate circumstance. It's just a bummer of a situation, and all the alleged rumors that are out there, take them for what you will. I'm not going to report on rumors. I'm not going to talk about rumors. I know a lot of people that I trust have said they've had people they trust confirm that those rumors are in fact true. But one thing we do on this show is we keep it 110%. And we're not going to dive into he said, she said, stuff that gets thrown out on social media. A lot of it's being thrown out there by multiple people. I just don't feel comfortable diving into anything that I cannot full-fledged 100% confirm. So until that day potentially happens, I'm not going to bring up rumors of anything on this show. But just the more we can continue to push forward, move on. I think Jordan Mailata said it best. We can all move on. We can all move forward. I think the biggest thing is going back and listening to that viral Brandon Graham quote from 2023 and the significance and the meaning behind all of that now, I think is an interesting tidbit. But the quicker we can move past this A.J. Brown stuff and just let him do what he wants to do in New England, we can worry about the Eagles and everybody that's in this door. And I think Brian Dawkins said that best too. You go to war for the guys in that locker room, but the day somebody walks out of that locker room, you wish them the best, you hope they have success, but they're not your priority anymore. And that's exactly where we're at right now. A.J. Brown is no longer in this locker room, and you just got to push forward. And you got to worry about the guys who are beside you in that locker room that are going to be out on that field with you during game day, and really push forward to make sure that this team is at their best 110%. And that's how I feel about this situation now. After all of this dust has really settled, that's where it's got to be. You got to worry about the guys that are on this team, that are in this locker room, and not worry about the guys that are no longer here, because they're not going to impact one way or another what the 2026 Philadelphia Eagles accomplish. The guys in that locker room, the guys on this coaching staff, the guys in the building are going to make sure the Eagles are the most successful versions of themselves. And that's really what it boils down to. Let me know how you feel about that. Speakpipe.com/undergroundsportsphiladelphia. And that Eagles little banter there brought to you by our friends over at Bino. Guys, Bino is the next big tabletop game for your man caves, your she sheds, your parties, your tailgates. You break out the Bino board, you are going to be the talk of your event. It's paper football meets foosball for the next big tabletop flicking experience. With the World Cup right around the corner, you won't want to miss out on having a Bino board on deck for your World Cup parties, your World Cup tailgates, and just getting ready to take on an experience of a lifetime here in the city of brotherly love. Use our link in the description to shop with Bino. That way they know you're coming from us. Fill up your carts with officially licensed World Cup Bino boards, the brand new Philadelphia Union board that I have to get my hands on. It's absolutely gorgeous. Plus so much more, accessories, apparel, merchandise. Use that link in the description and use code BinoBennett62 and you'll get 10% off your entire order. So get 10% off your entire order from Bino when you use the link in the description, and at checkout, use code BinoBennett62. That's BINHOBENNETT 62, and you'll get 10% off your entire order. And we thank Bino for being a proud partner of Underground Sports Philadelphia. That is all I've got for you guys on this one. Big thank you again to Coach Bill Tierney and Grace Hamilton for making Waterdogs Weekly possible this week. Make sure you guys are following us on the socials at Underground PHI across the board. We're on every social platform. Subscribe to the pod, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts in audio form. Leave those 5-star ratings and reviews. Subscribe to the Underground Sports Philadelphia YouTube channel, youtube.com/@UndergroundSportsPhiladelphia. Leave a like on the video, drop a comment in the comment section, and click that bell icon so you know whenever new videos go live. Get us to 1,300 subscribers. Be sure to tune in to Saturday Night Lacrosse on ESPN+. Philadelphia Waterdogs taking on the Boston Cannons in a revenge game. It's going to be a very, very fun game to close out the weekend down in Charlotte. PLL action on Friday and Saturday this week before the league goes on another league-wide bye next week. But please subscribe, follow, all that good stuff. Support the show, and I will be talking to you guys on Monday, breaking down hopefully a Waterdogs win for the first time since week 1, talking all things Phils as they take on the Chicago White Sox this weekend at Citizens Bank Park. We'll see if there's any other Eagles news, Flyers news, Sixers news, Union news, World Cup right on the horizon, and so much more, but I will talk to you all on Monday. Big thank you to Security 21 Security Systems and Paul J. Gillespie Incorporated for their continued support of this podcast. And this has been episode number 852 of Underground Sports Philadelphia, presented by the City of Vineland. For Bill Tierney, I'm KB. I'll catch you all on Monday, but until then, I'm getting the heck up out of here, and I'm signing off. Peace.